It started on a warm night in March, the kind that makes you feel like something's shifting even if you can't put your finger on what. We were at a dinner party thrown by her coworker, one of those overly decorated, wine poured too fast, everyone's too loud but pretending they're cultured kinds of evenings. I wasn't in the mood to go, but she insisted. Said we hadn't been out in weeks, that I'd turned into an old man. So I caved. I always caved with her. We arrived late, her choice. She made an entrance as usual, dressed in something that made every man in the room glance twice. She liked that. I used to think it was just her confidence, but now I wonder what else she got out of it. I hung back, talked to the host, tried to keep the wine in my glass from spilling as people shoved past each other in the too small living room. It wasn't even 15 minutes before I lost track of her. When I found her again, she was laughing a little too hard at a joke told by a guy I'd never met, tall, smug-looking, the kind of guy who wears loafers with no socks and acts like he owns every room he walks into. She had that glint in her eyes, the one I used to think was mine. It wasn't. Then it happened. It was sudden, careless, tossed into the air like it meant nothing. Someone, maybe the host's brother, was joking about how all married couples cheat eventually. A stupid, loud, drunken comment. Everyone laughed awkwardly, the way people do when they want to seem cool but aren't sure if they should. And then she said it. If I ever cheat, it won't be accidental. I'll do it properly, with someone worth getting caught for. The room went silent for half a second. Not long, but long enough. She laughed, took another sip of her drink, moved on like it didn't matter. No one else cared. No one else noticed. But I stood there, watching her laugh with a stranger, and something cracked in me, not clean like glass, but jagged, splintered, slow. I didn't say anything then. What could I say? Make a scene? Ask her in front of everyone what the hell she meant. I watched her the rest of the night. Closely. Too closely. The way she leaned in when she spoke to people. The way she touched her necklace, something she always did when she was lying. She kept disappearing down hallways, always reappearing with a new story or drink or excuse. She avoided me, not in an obvious way, but in a calculated, practiced one. She kept us separate. Like we weren't even there together. When we finally got home, she acted like everything was normal. I asked her about the joke. She said I was being sensitive. Said it was just words, said I should know her better than that. But the way she said it, too calm, too even, made my skin crawl. She had that calmness people get when they're absolutely sure they're untouchable. When they think they've buried everything too deep to be found. Couldn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling while she slept beside me like nothing had happened. Something about the way she breathed, peacefully, unconcerned, made it worse. I felt like I was lying next to a stranger. And maybe I was. Maybe I had been for a long time. The next morning she was all smiles and soft kisses and what do you want for breakfast? I told her I wasn't hungry. She shrugged like it didn't matter. She left early, didn't say where she was going. Didn't ask if I needed anything. Didn't even look back. I sat in that empty kitchen for hours, just listening to the silence. I didn't want to be the kind of man who snoops, but something had shifted, and I couldn't shake it. There was something wrong. Something thick in the air that no amount of excuses could wipe away. That joke wasn't a joke. It was a signal. A warning. And I had a feeling it was just the beginning. I wish I'd been wrong. She didn't come home that night until almost midnight. She didn't text. Didn't call. When I asked her where she'd been, she looked at me like I'd asked something stupid. With friends, she said, tossing her bag on the chair, kicking off her shoes like she hadn't been gone 14 hours. You don't need a full report every time I leave the house. I didn't respond. I just looked at her. Not like a husband, not like someone trying to keep the peace. I looked at her the way a man watches a room before it burns down. There was something in her tone, the way she moved past me to pour a glass of wine like she owned the place, like she owned me. No guilt. No apology. She didn't even lie. Well, she just didn't care if I believed her. She scrolled through her phone while drinking. Not a glance in my direction. I could see the screen flashing. I saw the way her fingers moved fast, familiar, comfortable. It wasn't the aimless scrolling of someone on social media. It was the kind of typing you do when you're telling someone where to meet you. Or what you're wearing. Or when you're free again. I asked again. Not loudly. Not even angrily. Just a simple question. Who were you with? She didn't look up. Just smirked, and I mean really smirked, like she wanted to be caught. Then she said something I still hear in my head every single time I close my eyes. "Don't worry. He's not the talkative type." I froze. For a second I thought I misheard her. I blinked. I opened my mouth. Then I shut it again. She just sipped her wine, eyes locked on her phone. I walked out of the room. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I just walked into the dark hallway and leaned against the wall. Everything in my body was wired, tense, humming, shaking. That wasn't just a confession. That was a declaration. Not only was she cheating, she wanted me to know. She was daring me to confront her. I didn't sleep that night either. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened, like she hadn't shattered something permanent. She asked if I wanted to go out for brunch, like we were still that couple who did normal things on weekends. I told her I had plans. I didn't. I just couldn't look at her without wanting to throw every plate we owned at the wall. I started checking everything after that. Phone records, credit card charges, her email, her calendar. The lies were everywhere. Some subtle, some sloppy. Lunches that never happened. Meetings that didn't exist. Charges from hotels she swore she'd never stepped foot in. And then there were the Uber receipts. I traced them, matched the timestamps. The places she claimed to be, they never lined up. One ride caught my eye. It was from a hotel downtown to a residential address at 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. She told me she was staying late for a project deadline. That night, I waited until she fell asleep. Then I took her phone. She used the same passcode for everything. I always thought that was cute. Now it felt like an insult. Like she never thought I'd even look. I found the messages. Not one guy. Three. 3 different men. Different names. Different tones. One of them sent her photos of plane tickets. Another called her Angel and told her he missed the way she bit his shoulder when she got excited. The third? He didn't write much. Just sent times, places, receipts. I felt sick. I put the phone down and sat in the bathroom with the door locked. Not crying. Not yelling. Just hollow. Like someone had scooped out everything inside me and replaced it with static. I didn't sleep again. I just sat there, listening to her breathing through the door. That morning, I made her breakfast. She came into the kitchen wearing that same robe she always wore when she wanted to play the part of the sweet wife. She smiled when she saw the eggs, kissed my cheek, told me I was being sweet. I handed her the plate and sat across from her. And I asked her how long it had been going on. She didn't flinch. She didn't deny it. She just looked me in the eye and said, "Long enough to realize I deserve better." And then she took a bite of her eggs. Like that was that. Like everything we'd ever built was disposable. Like I was the one who owed her an explanation. I didn't touch my food. I just sat there. And for the first time in my life, I understood what real, clean rage felt like, the kind that doesn't explode. The kind that burns cold. She left the table before finishing her meal, not because she was in a hurry, but because she wanted to prove she could. She carried the plate to the sink, let the fork clang too hard against the porcelain, then walked out of the kitchen like we hadn't just had the most gutless conversation a married couple could possibly have. No tears. No guilt. Just quiet, poisonous control. I stayed seated for a long time, staring at the empty chair where she'd sat with such cruel calm. Long enough to realize I deserve better. That sentence echoed in my head like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. The audacity of it, like I had failed her. It wasn't about the cheating anymore. It was about the game. She'd made a game out of this, measured, deliberate, and smug. That same afternoon, while she was meeting a friend for coffee, I got in my car and drove to that address from the Uber receipt. It was in a quiet suburb, the kind with manicured lawns and mailboxes with little flags. I parked a few houses down and waited. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I couldn't sit in that house another second without doing something. 15 minutes later, a man walked out. Maybe mid-30s, fit, clean haircut, button-down shirt, like a catalog model for some overpriced divorcee lifestyle brand. I knew it was him. I don't know how, but I knew. He didn't see me. He got into a silver SUV and drove off like it was any other day. Like my life wasn't unraveling on the other end of his story. When I got back home, she was already there. Showered. In pajamas. curled up with a glass of wine and a stupid crime show humming on the TV like she had nothing to hide. I didn't say a word about the drive. Not yet. I had something better. Over the next 3 days, I watched her closely. I listened. I kept her phone's data syncing to an old laptop she forgot I still had access to. I didn't tell her what I knew. I wanted to see if she'd even try to lie anymore. But she didn't. She didn't try to be careful. She was emboldened. She started staying out later, dressing like she was going somewhere important. And then Thursday night happened. She came home late. Not the latest she's ever been, but late enough. I was waiting in the living room, lights low, everything quiet. She walked in and saw me sitting there and paused in the doorway, holding her heels in one hand. "You scared me," she said. "Where were you?" I asked. "Out." "Where exactly?" "Don't start this again." She set her shoes down, exhaled like I was exhausting her. "We've had this conversation." I stood up slowly, walked over to the table where my laptop sat open, turned the screen toward her. "You sent him a photo from our bedroom," I said. My voice didn't even sound like mine. "You told him the sheets still smelled like him." Her expression didn't shift. Not right away. Then she narrowed her eyes. Not with guilt, but with annoyance. "You went through my phone?" That was it. That was the first thing she said. Not sorry, not I can explain, not even yes. Just outrage that I'd invaded her little kingdom of filth. "I gave you everything," I said. "I built a life with you, and you turned it into a vacation home for strangers." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Don't be so dramatic. You're acting like I ran a brothel. It was 2 people. 3. That stopped her. Just for a beat. But then she tilted her head. "Wow. You've been busy, haven't you?" she said. "I know about the hotel. The dinners. The fake meetings. I know everything." She walked past me, picked up her wine glass, sipped slowly, then turned to me and said something I will never forget. "Then why are you still here?" And in that second, something inside me went completely still. Because she wasn't asking out of curiosity. She wasn't asking to hurt me. She was genuinely confused. She had expected me to leave, had already written the script for it. And I wasn't following it. That threw her. I didn't answer her. Not yet. Because the way she asked that question told me something terrifying. She hadn't cheated to fill a void. She hadn't strayed by accident. She'd done it intentionally. To get rid of me. I didn't leave that night. I didn't pack a bag or scream or throw anything. I didn't grab my keys and drive off into the dark like some movie husband unraveling at the seams. I just went to bed. That confused her more than anything. She stood in the hallway for a full minute after I walked away, waiting for something, a fight, a monologue, a breakdown. But I gave her nothing. The next morning I got up early, made coffee, sat at the table like it was any other Friday. She came down in a robe, eyes narrowed, scanning me like I was a stranger who had broken into her house. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Drinking coffee." She didn't reply. She stood there, arms crossed, like she was waiting for me to explode. But I had reached a different place. A colder place. When something rots enough, you don't rage at it, you just remove it. "You said last night, why are you still here?" I said, keeping my voice calm. She blinked. "Yeah, I did. Is that what you want? For me to leave?" She hesitated, which almost fooled me. Then she said, "I think we both know this marriage is dead." And just like that, she put it on the table. Not a tear. Not even a flicker of emotion. She didn't say it like someone grieving. She said it like someone reciting a grocery list. I stared at her for a moment, taking in the ease with which she killed it. What we'd built, what we'd shared. No resistance. No remorse. Just a closing line. I didn't respond. Not because I was stunned, but because I was watching. Something in her was still holding back, not emotionally but strategically. She was measuring me. She went upstairs, showered, got dressed in something tight and black. Too dressed up for a normal Friday. I asked where she was going. She smiled like I was a child asking why the sun moves. Out. Might be gone all weekend. She didn't ask if I needed anything. Didn't ask what I'd do. Just left with her bag slung over her shoulder. perfume trailing behind her like the scent of a slow betrayal. The moment the door clicked shut, I moved. I had already copied everything I needed. The messages, the receipts, the photos, neatly organized, downloaded, timestamped. I wasn't going to beg her to stop. I wasn't going to reason with someone who looked me in the face and called our marriage dead. I wanted to know who she was when I wasn't watching. So I followed her. I waited 30 minutes, took a different route, parked far enough away to not be noticed, but close enough to keep her in sight. She wasn't going out with friends. She drove straight to a private gym, one of those boutique places that charge you for eucalyptus towels and candlelit spin classes. She didn't go inside. She walked to the side entrance, used her phone to text, waited. A man came out, same one from the house. He kissed her, long, like they'd done it 100 times. I watched her laugh, run her hand through his hair, like she was in a completely different life, one where I didn't exist. They got in his car and drove off together. I followed them, keeping distance. Through traffic, past lights, all the way to a restaurant downtown, one we used to go to on anniversaries. She took him there. Our place. They sat in a corner booth. She leaned in. He touched her wrist. She laughed with her head tilted back like she used to when we were first dating, only now it wasn't mine to hold. I took photos. Not for revenge. Not for court. For me. For proof. So I'd never let myself believe I imagined it. So I'd remember the moment the lie became truth. They stayed there for 2 hours. Then left. I didn't follow them after that. I'd seen enough. I drove home in silence, no music, no thoughts. Just a growing clarity. She didn't want me gone because she hated me. She wanted me gone because she had replaced me. And what scared me wasn't that she moved on, it was that she had already planned her next life, step by step, while I was still thinking we could fix something. That night, I slept. First real sleep in weeks. But the next morning, I started planning. Not for reconciliation. Not even for a confrontation. For exit. I wasn't going to let her walk away clean. Not after what I saw. She wanted a performance? She was about to get one. The first thing I did the next morning was call a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, the lawyer. The one you go to when you want a divorce that leaves no ashes. She didn't come cheap, but neither did Betrayal. I told her everything. Not in the voice of a broken man, but in the voice of someone who'd watched the house burn down and was now drafting the blueprints to rebuild from the wreckage alone. She listened. She asked questions. She requested evidence. I sent it all. Photos. Screenshots. GPS pings. Receipts. The timeline. The audio clip I secretly recorded when she said our marriage was dead. That line became our keystone. My lawyer didn't blink. She said, "This is going to be easier than I expected." Meanwhile, my wife still hadn't returned home. That day passed. Then Sunday. She didn't call. Didn't text. I didn't reach out either. I wanted her to stay exactly where she was, buried in whatever fantasy she was playing out with him. I spent those days emptying the joint bank account into my personal one, transferring the car title, and scanning every shared document we had. I knew she'd play dirty eventually. I just wanted to make sure she didn't get the first swing. Monday morning, she returned. No knock. No warning. She just walked in with her weekend bag and that same smug calm. She dropped the bag in the hallway and looked at me with the face of someone who expected me to ask for forgiveness. "You didn't even text me," she said, voice light, playful, like she was testing how much leash she still had. "I didn't want to interrupt your weekend," I said. "Seemed like you were having fun." She blinked. Caught off guard, just for a moment. "Oh," she said. "So we're doing that now." She walked past me into the kitchen. Opened the fridge. Took out a bottle of water like nothing had happened. And that's when I dropped it. I spoke to a lawyer. She paused, bottle halfway to her lips. Slowly turned. "You're kidding." "I'm not." "Over this?" "This?" I repeated. "You call this?" Her face twisted. Not into guilt, into offense. Like I was being unreasonable. She scoffed and leaned on the counter. "So what, you're just going to throw everything away because I had some fun?" I stepped forward. "No. I'm throwing it away because you already did. I'm just taking out the trash." That hit. For a second, I saw something flicker in her, the tiniest hairline crack in her armor. But it vanished quickly. She straightened up, arms crossed. "Wow. So now you're some moral high ground hero? You think this makes you better than me? No, I said. I don't need to be better than you. I just need to be away from you. Her eyes narrowed. You think you're the only one who was unhappy? You think I cheated because I was bored? You stopped being present years ago. You checked out. I just walked out. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was pathetic. She was rewriting history, framing her betrayal as some noble reactionary act. It would have been hilarious if it wasn't so grotesque. You don't get to cheat and blame me for it. She smirked. Well, someone had to pull the trigger, and now I'm pulling mine, I said. Papers are being drawn up. My lawyer will be in touch. We're done. The silence that followed was thick. For once, she didn't have a comeback. She just stood there, eyes flicking between me and the floor, as if she was waiting for the camera crew to shout cut and tell her the scene was over. But this wasn't a scene. This was real. Her fantasy was cracking. The man she thought would fall apart was now laying bricks for his new world, and she wasn't invited. She tried one last line. You'll regret this. I smiled. For the first time in a long, long time. No, you will. Then I walked out. Not to cool off. Not to think. I had nothing left to figure out. I was finally done walking in circles around someone who never intended to walk beside me. I didn't go back to the house that night. I didn't tell her where I was staying, and I knew better than to check my phone. She'd try to call, text, spin the story. Not to get me back. No, that wasn't her game anymore. She wanted control. She wanted the last word. I was done giving it to her. I stayed at a hotel downtown, nothing fancy, just clean and quiet. A place where I could stare at the ceiling without hearing her voice echoing through the walls. I lay there in that unfamiliar bed, and instead of feeling lost or defeated, I felt still, like something inside me had finally stopped spinning. The next morning, I met with my lawyer again. We went over every angle, property division, accounts, the timeline, potential leverage. I handed her everything I'd gathered, and she handed me power. Real, tangible leverage. The kind you don't get back once you've given it up, which is exactly why I'd never given her a hint of what I was planning. And then the email came. Around noon, I got a message from her. Subject line, we need to talk. No body. Just that. No apology. No accountability. Just a summons, like she expected me to show up and listen to her terms. I didn't reply. By 4 o'clock, she'd called 5 times. By 6, she was texting. We can be adults about this. You're being cold. Let's just talk before it gets messy. Don't drag this out. That last one made me laugh. She cheated. She lied. She dragged us through the mud. And now she was worried about a mess? I ignored her. At 8:17 p.m., she finally snapped. One last message came in. Fine. If you want war, you'll get it. There it was. The shift. The real her. Mask off. No more fake civility. No more passive deflection. She thought I'd come crawling back, or at least beg her to meet me halfway. But I had already stepped off her map entirely. She didn't know how to handle that. The next morning, I went back to the house. Not to talk. Not to explain. I was there for one reason, to collect what was mine. I had the keys. I had a plan. And I had a moving truck scheduled for 11 a.m. The driver arrived right on time, 2 guys, efficient, no questions asked. I gave them a list of what to take. They started loading. Furniture I paid for. Items from my office. Sentimental things she never touched, never cared about. She wasn't home. I didn't care where she was. This wasn't her story anymore. By noon, I was gone. Everything I needed packed into boxes and crates. Everything else, the place, the memories, the ghost of what used to be us, left behind like furniture in a house someone else would eventually demolish. She came back that evening after the storm had passed. I know because she called, not to scream, not to fight, but in stunned confusion. You moved out. I didn't answer. Then came the string of follow-ups. I thought we were going to talk. This is childish. You don't get to disappear. Oh, but I did. I had spent so long living in her orbit, spinning around her moods, her manipulations, her cold smiles. She thought I'd orbit forever, but I was done revolving. I was done being the one left holding the truth while she played games in the shadows. I didn't respond to a single message. Silence became my final word. And in that silence, something bloomed. Not vengeance, not spite, but freedom. She didn't know it yet, but she'd lost everything the moment she turned our marriage into a stage. And I'd just finished writing the final act. The first real sign that she was unraveling came 2 days after the move. She showed up at my office. No warning, no text. She just walked in like she still had access to my life, like she was entitled to space in a world she'd already set fire to. The receptionist had that stiff smile you give when someone's clearly not supposed to be there but has enough history to make it awkward. She wore white, a soft blouse, tailored pants. She looked like she was auditioning for the role of a grieving wife, calm, composed, slightly wounded. A performance, but one she'd rehearsed 1,000 times in her head. "Do you have a second?" she asked, stepping into the hallway like she hadn't just bulldozed my entire life. I didn't want a scene, so I nodded. We walked to a side office. Empty. Glass walls. Nothing to hide behind. She sat across from me, legs crossed, hands folded neatly in her lap. "I'm not here to fight," she said. I said nothing. "I just think this whole thing is spiraling." I raised an eyebrow. She sighed. "We had problems, sure. But divorce? Come on. We can fix this. You don't throw away years over mistakes." "Mistakes?" I said. "That's what we're calling it now." She had the nerve to nod. Like it was a spilled drink. A missed flight. Not a campaign of betrayal stretched over months. "I made choices I regret," she continued, carefully sculpted phrases designed to sound sincere without admitting anything. "But so did you. You weren't present. You stopped trying." There it was again. The reframe. The twisted script where she's the victim of neglect, not the architect of betrayal. "You're not here to fix anything," I said, finally breaking my silence. "You're here because you lost control." Her lips tightened. She wasn't used to being seen like that, naked, unguarded, with no room to pivot. She was used to arguments she could win with a tear or a touch or a sudden sob story. None of that worked now. "I don't want this to get ugly," she said. "You already made it ugly." She stood up, walked to the window, looked out like she was contemplating something bigger than both of us. Then she said something so bold, so absurd, it took me a second to even register it. "What if we pause everything? Take a few weeks apart. No lawyers. No paperwork. Just space." I laughed. Quietly but fully. "You had all the space in the world, and you used it to crawl into someone else's life." She turned around sharply. "You're really going to let one mistake define everything?" It wasn't one. It was constant. Calculated. Repeated. And you never even tried to hide it well. Silence again. But this time it was hers. She'd run out of lines. I could see it in the way her hands shifted, in the way her mouth opened and closed, trying to find new words that might undo what she'd done. She left without another word. That night I got a call from a mutual friend. Said she'd been talking, spinning stories, saying I'd left her suddenly, that I'd shut down, disappeared emotionally, walked out without a word. I didn't argue. Let her build her version. Let her stand in the center of a lie she couldn't defend for long. The truth had legs, and it was moving faster than she ever expected. What she didn't know was that my lawyer had already filed. That every asset she thought she could manipulate was already protected. That the home she was living in? The deed was in my name. And she'd be getting a notice to vacate within weeks. Her little empire was built on paper, and I had started the fire. The notice to vacate hit her 3 days later. I didn't warn her. I didn't send a heads up. It arrived in the mail, crisp and cold, stamped with legal precision. The kind of letter that cuts deeper than any argument ever could. I imagined her standing in the hallway, flipping it open with that same dismissive confidence she always carried, expecting a bill, maybe, or another meaningless envelope. But not that. Not the end. She called me immediately. I didn't answer. She texted. "You're throwing me out? You're seriously doing this? After everything we've shared?" I didn't reply. I let the silence do the talking. Let the paperwork carry the weight of every broken vow she treated like a punchline. She thought she had immunity. She thought her chaos couldn't touch her. But the world doesn't work like that forever. Eventually the receipts come due. The next day she showed up again. At the hotel this time. How she found out where I was staying, I still don't know. But she stood outside my room, knocking like it was some casual visit. "Open the door," she said. Her voice wasn't angry, it was tight, controlled, the way someone talks when their world is falling apart and they still want to look like they're the one holding the leash. I opened it. Not because I wanted to see her, but because I wanted her to see me. No rage. No collapse. Just peace. Her face twisted the moment she saw I wasn't broken. She stepped inside without being invited, eyes darting around like she expected to find some new life already unpacked in the drawers. "This is insane," she said. "You're kicking me out of our house?" "It's my house. You forgot that part." "Don't do this," she said, softer now. Less venom, more desperation. "Let's talk. Just us. No lawyers. No threats." I didn't move. I just watched her unravel in slow motion. "What do you want?" she asked, exasperated. "You want an apology? Fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did what I did. I'm sorry it hurt you. I'm sorry I didn't think you'd grow a spine." There it was. The truth beneath the apology. The real sentence buried under layers of fake regret. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry she got cornered. "I don't need your apology," I said. "I need you out of my life. You think it's going to be better without me? You think you're just going to move on and forget all of this?" "No," I said. "I'm going to remember everything. That's how I'll never make the same mistake again." She sat down on the edge of the bed like she still had a place there. Like her name was still stitched into the sheets. She looked up at me, eyes burning now not with sadness, but fury. The realization hitting her all at once, I was done. "For real. You're pathetic," she spat. "You needed me. You wouldn't even exist without me." I stepped closer, leaned down, met her eyes without blinking. "I existed before you. And I'll be free after you." She stood abruptly, knocking the chair backward. "You'll regret this." "No," I said again calmly like it was the final nail in a coffin. "You will." She stormed out. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't slam the door. And that silence? It was the loudest victory I've ever heard. 2 weeks passed. She moved out of the house. No ceremony. No statement. Just a moving van and a few texts to mutual friends playing the victim, painting herself as a woman discarded by a cold, heartless husband who couldn't handle a little pain. She tried to claim she was blindsided, that we never even really talked about fixing it, that I had snapped without warning. But the thing about lies is they only work if people want to believe them. And the people around us? They weren't stupid. They'd seen the cracks. They'd seen the way she talked to me at parties, dismissive, smug, barely pretending to hide her contempt. The friends who used to smile politely started asking her real questions. And she hated that. The narrative she'd been weaving started falling apart. Bit by bit, I got texts from friends who'd been distant for a while, saying we always knew something wasn't right. One of her former co-workers even reached out, someone I barely knew, and said, "You deserved better. We all saw what she was like when you weren't around." Meanwhile, I stayed quiet. I didn't explain myself. I didn't campaign. I let her exhaust herself trying to build a story that no one wanted to buy anymore. The legal side moved quickly. Thanks to the mountain of evidence and the cold efficiency of my lawyer, we skipped mediation entirely. She tried to fight some of it, tried to claim she deserved a bigger share. But she didn't have the leverage. The courts don't smile kindly on calculated infidelity with receipts attached. She lost the house. She lost access to the joint savings. She kept her car, her clothes, and whatever fragments of her dignity she hadn't already thrown away. But what she really lost and what she couldn't replace was the illusion of control. One night, after everything had been finalized, I got one last message from her. "You win." Just that. No name. No signature. No emotion. 3 words that dripped with venom disguised as surrender. But it wasn't about winning. It was about ending. Ending the cycle. Ending the slow burn of self-betrayal I'd allowed every time I gave her another chance, every time I let her twist the narrative, every time I bit my tongue while she smiled at strangers like I was just an accessory to her ego. I didn't reply. I deleted the message. Because that too was over. There was no final conversation. No bittersweet coffee shop meetup. No, maybe someday closure. Just silence. And in that silence, I started to remember who I was before her, not the man trying to keep a sinking marriage afloat, but the man who knew how to build something real. Something grounded. Something that couldn't be shaken by a glance, a lie, or a smirk at a dinner party. She thought she burned the house down, but all she did was clear the land. The first morning after it was all officially over, I woke up before the sun. No texts, no notifications, no passive-aggressive sighs from across the bed. Just a strange, unfamiliar quiet, the kind you feel in your bones. I got up, walked barefoot across the floor of my new apartment. It was still half empty, boxes leaning against the walls, curtains not yet hung. But it was mine. Every corner of that space belonged to me, untouched by lies, untouched by someone else's performance. I made coffee, sat by the window, watched the light come in slow and soft, and I realized something I hadn't in years. I wasn't holding my breath. For so long, I lived in anticipation, waiting for the next shift in her mood, the next cold jab disguised as humor, the next late night I wouldn't question because I didn't want to hear the answer. I called it marriage, but it was survival, silent endurance, a theater of pretending things were fine when they were already ashes under the rug. Now, the pretending was over. It didn't come with fireworks, came with breath, space, the quiet recognition that I hadn't been weak for staying. I had just been loyal, and she had weaponized that loyalty, worn it like a crown while building her escape plan in whispers and text threads. But the most dangerous thing she ever did wasn't the betrayal itself. It was convincing me I deserved it. I've spent weeks unpacking the truth. Not just the events, but the weight behind them. How long I ignored what I felt. How often I made excuses for the way she looked through me, around me. How I used to tell people we were just going through a rough patch, when deep down I knew we were on a countdown. And now I'm done with all of it. I've changed my number, cut ties. She still tries to reach out occasionally. Likes a photo I post, sends a "saw this and thought of you" email that I don't open. But she's just testing the waters, tossing a line into a sea she no longer owns. She doesn't know the tides have changed. I'm seeing people now, carefully, casually, not chasing anything, not trying to replace what was lost. I don't want a substitute. I want clarity. I want someone who speaks like they mean it, who doesn't wear masks inside the house. Some days I still feel it, the echo of who we were or who I thought we were. That ache doesn't disappear overnight, but now it comes without confusion, without shame. Just a reminder of the man I used to be. The one who tolerated less than he deserved because he thought love was supposed to hurt sometimes. It's not. So here's my advice to anyone reading this, to anyone still wondering if they're overreacting. If your partner ever jokes about cheating and you feel something twist inside you, listen to it. If you feel like you're the only one fighting for something real, believe that feeling. And if the person beside you ever treats your love like a leash, like something to pull when it's convenient and ignore when it's not, walk away. It won't be easy. It will break you open. But on the other side, there's air. And nothing feels better than finally breathing again.